So let me ask you something personal, and I want you to answer honestly. How much time do you actually spend selling each day? Not working, not responding to emails, not sitting in meetings, not doing admin, not preparing, actually selling face to face or voice to voice with a prospect who could say yes. If you're honest, the number might be smaller than you want to admit. Tracy cites research that should shake every salesperson awake. The average salesperson across industries, across experience levels, works about 90 minutes a day of actual selling time. 90 minutes out of an 8-hour day, sometimes a 10-hour day. 90 minutes of real selling. And here's the uncomfortable question. What's filling the rest of that time? For most people, the answer is fear. Not the obvious kind, the fear that makes you freeze in your tracks or run out of the room. It's quieter than that, more subtle, more insidious. It shows up as just checking a few emails first, as I'll make the call after lunch, as reading the news before you start, as shuffling papers, as one more cup of coffee, as chatting with coworkers about how tough the market is. All of it, every single delay, is a fear in disguise. Tracy calls this a subconscious brake. It's the force that holds you back without you even realizing it's there. And at the root of it are two fears: the fear of rejection and the fear of failure. Let's talk about the rejection first. The fear of rejection goes deep, deeper than sales, deeper than your career. It starts in childhood, when we learned through experience, through observation, that being criticized or excluded hurt, that being rejected meant something was wrong with us. And somewhere along the way, our brain started treating rejection as a threat, not just emotionally uncomfortable, actually dangerous, like a physical attack. In sales, that means every time you pick up the phone, every time you knock on a door, every time you ask for the close, your brain is running a calculation. If I do this, I might be rejected. They might say no. They might be rude. They might make me feel small. And if that fear is strong enough, if the anticipated pain is high enough, your subconscious finds ways to protect you. Delay, procrastination, excuses, busy work, anything to avoid the moment when you have to put yourself on the line and risk hearing no. You tell yourself you're being strategic. You tell yourself you're preparing, but really you're hiding. I remember a stretch early in my fundraising career when this hits me hard. I was working shopping centers in Canada, holiday season. Foot traffic was through the roof. Thousands of people walking by every hour. And I was struggling. I'd stand in my spot, watch people walk by, find myself hesitating to approach. Not every time, but just often enough to cost me. I'd wait for the right person. I'd tell myself the last rejection rattled me too much. I'd take a bathroom break I didn't even really need. I'd reorganize my material, check my phone, find reasons, small, subtle, completely reasonable reasons to delay. And by the end of the day, my numbers were average, even though the opportunity was everywhere, even though people were literally streaming past me. What I didn't realize at the time was that the fear of rejection was running the show, not my strategy, not the market, my subconscious brake. Tracy makes this point that I think about all the time. He says, imagine you showed up to work tomorrow and your boss handed you a printout. 50 prospects, all highly qualified, all ready to buy. And you're told with 90% certainty that if you just call on them within the next 24 hours, they will say yes. Guaranteed, 90% close rate. What would you do? You'd be out the door before the sentence finished. You wouldn't check emails. You wouldn't chat by the coffee machine. You wouldn't second guess yourself. You wouldn't wait until after lunch. You'd call every single person on that list as fast as humanly possible. You start at dawn, work until midnight. And why? Because the fear is gone. When rejection is off the table, when the outcome is guaranteed, procrastination disappears, which proves the point. The fear of rejection is the break, not the market, not the leads, not your ability, the fear. Tracy says rejection isn't personal. It sounds simple, but most people don't actually believe it. They know it intellectually. They nod when someone says it. But in the moment, when someone says no, especially when they're rude about it, it doesn't feel impersonal. It feels like a verdict, like a judgment, like confirmation of your worst fear. But here's the reality. When someone says no, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the offer, the timing, the interruption. Their day is complicated. Their finances are tight. Their mind is somewhere else. 1,000 factors you can't see or control. They're not saying you're not good enough. They're saying, not this, not now, not me. Tracy compares it to weather. Some days it rains. Some days the sun shines. You don't take the rain personally. You just grab an umbrella. Same with rejection. It happens. It's part of the game. You shrug your shoulders and move on to the next. The motto is, some will, some won't. So what? Next. Now let's talk about the second fear, the fear of failure. And this one cuts even deeper because it's tied to identity. Fear of rejection says, they might not like me. Fear of rejection says, I might not be good enough. And that belief, I'm not good enough, is the most destructive thought in sales because it doesn't just stop you from acting. It stops you from trying. It stops you from believing success is even possible. Tracy says the fear of failure develops early, usually from parents who criticized too much when we were children. When you tried something new and failed, and instead of being encouraged, you were made to feel stupid or clumsy or inadequate. Your brain learned something dangerous. It learned that failure means pain. And ever since, your subconscious has been working to protect you from that pain by keeping you from trying, by keeping you from fully committing, by keeping you from putting yourself in situations where you might fail publicly. I had a conversation years ago with a rep I was coaching. Sharp guy, good instincts, solid work ethic, but his results were wildly inconsistent. Some weeks he was on fire. Other weeks he barely scraped by. I asked him one day what was going on in his head during the slow weeks. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, honestly, I start wondering if I actually belong here. Like maybe I just got lucky those good weeks. Like maybe if I really try, really put myself out there and fail, it'll prove what I've always suspected. Which is what I asked. That I'm not actually good enough. There it was. Fear of failure, dressed up as humility. He was scared that if he fully committed, if he put himself out there completely and still failed, it would confirm his deepest fear. So instead, he held back, kept some effort in reserve. That way, if things didn't work out, he could tell himself he wasn't really trying. It's the most common defense mechanism in sales, and it costs people fortunes. Tracy talks about the relationship between self-esteem and fear. He uses this image of two escalators, one going up, one going down. The up escalator leads to high self-esteem, courage, and confidence. The down escalator leads to fear, doubt, and hesitation. And here's the key. They're inverse. The more you like yourself, the faster you go up. The more you doubt yourself, the faster you slide down. They move in opposite directions. So if you want to beat the fear of failure, you don't attack the fear directly. That rarely works. Instead, you build self-esteem. You remind yourself of your wins. You acknowledge your growth. You speak to yourself the way a great coach would speak to a player. You celebrate effort, not just outcomes. And as self-esteem rises, fear loses its grips. The brakes release, and you start driving with your full foot on the gas. Here's something Tracy recommends that I've used for years. At the end of every day, write down 3 things you did well. Not closed deals, not big wins, just moments where you showed up, made the effort, handled something with skill. Maybe it was a conversation you didn't bail on. Maybe it was a callback you followed through on. Maybe it was a moment where you stayed calm when the customer was difficult. Write it down. Read it out loud. Because every time you acknowledge your own effort, every time you recognize your own progress, your self-esteem goes up. And when self-esteem goes up, the fears lose their power. You stop pulling the brake. You stop hiding behind busy work, and you start making the calls that actually matter. But here's the thing. Managing fear is one side of the equation. The other side is what you project. Because even when you've started releasing the brake, even when you've begun doing the inner work, there's still the question of what the customer actually receives. And that brings us to the transfer. The moment when your belief becomes their belief. The moment when enthusiasm stops being a feeling and becomes a force. That's what separates good salespeople from great ones. And it's what we're exploring next. Hey, thanks for checking out this clip from the Sales Evolution Lab podcast. If you found value in this lesson, be sure to hit subscribe to evolve for the future of selling. And if you want the full breakdown, the deeper stories, the practical toolkit, check out the full episode of the Sales Evolution Lab podcast. Just click the video on the screen, and I'll see you there.